Look up at the sheer, vertical rock faces of the Alps, the treacherous limestone cliffs of the Himalayas, or the crumbling canyon walls of the American West, and you will witness a phenomenon that seems to violate the very laws of terrestrial physics. Dangling from ledges no wider than a human palm, hundreds of feet above a certain depth, are not elite mountaineers with high-tech climbing gear, but an ancient lineage of four-legged, hooved anomalies, the goats. For millennia, humanity has viewed the domestic goat, Capra hircus, and its wild counterparts, the ibex and markhor, as mere agricultural fixtures or simple mountain herbivores. But this dismissive perspective overlooks a stunning evolutionary truth. The goat is not a passive grazer. It is a hyper-specialized, biological engineering marvel designed to infiltrate and dominate the most vertical, unstable, and unforgiving landscapes on Earth. While apex predators like wolves and snow leopards rely on muscle mass and speed to secure their dominion on flat ground, the caprine lineage has conquered the world by mastering the vertical axis, using a structural blueprint that transforms gravity from a lethal threat into a tactical sanctuary. To truly understand the physics-defying capabilities of the goat, one must look directly at the structural mechanics of their most critical contact point with the Earth, the hoof. Unlike the solid, rigid hooves of horses or the heavy, compact digits of cattle, a goat's hoof is a highly dynamic, dual-functioning tool split into two independent, movable toes. The outer rim of each hoof is composed of a dense, razor-sharp wall of hardened keratin that can dig into the microscopic fissures of smooth granite like a climbing piton. Conversely, the interior of the hoof features a soft, rubbery, high-friction pad that deforms under pressure, molding itself perfectly to the uneven contours of rough stone to maximize surface area contact. This dual-zone architecture provides an unparalleled combination of mechanical wedging and hydraulic grip, allowing the animal to find purchase on vertical rock faces where a human climbing shoe would immediately lose traction and slide into the abyss. The true genius of this skeletal engineering extends far beyond the feet, embedding itself within the entire biomechanical framework of the caprine body. A goat's forelimbs are structurally positioned remarkably close to its center of gravity, and its shoulder blades are connected to the main skeletal frame by a highly elastic network of massive muscle groups rather than a rigid collarbone. This specialized anatomy allows the front legs to absorb catastrophic impacts when leaping downward onto uneven ledges, while simultaneously granting the torso an astonishing degree of lateral flexibility. When a goat pulls itself up a steep incline, its powerful hind legs act as hydraulic pistons, launching the animal upward, while the flexible front limbs function as precision-stabilizing hooks. This kinetic synergy allows them to execute rapid, explosive ascents, turning a sheer 90-degree cliff into a highly navigable staircase. This physical prowess is guided by an internal gyroscopic stabilization system that operates with unmatched biological precision. A goat's eyes are fitted with unique, horizontally elongated rectangular pupils that grant them a panoramic visual field spanning roughly 320 to 340 degrees. This extraordinary wide-angle view allows them to scan the horizon for approaching predators without ever having to turn their heads and disrupt their delicate physical balance. More importantly, these rectangular pupils are driven by an involuntary rotational mechanism known as cyclovergence. When a goat tilts its head down to graze or upward to climb, its eyeballs automatically rotate within their sockets to keep the pupils perfectly parallel to the true horizontal plane of the Earth. This constant visual stabilization ensures that the animal's brain receives a permanent, UN-distorted grid of the surrounding topography, allowing it to calculate landing coordinates mid-leap with mathematical certainty. Yet, it is a caprine's complete mastery of spatial awareness and cold, calculated psychological focus that elevates it above all other mountain dwellers. A goat does not experience vertigo. Its central nervous system is completely desensitized to the psychological terror of high-altitude exposure. When trapped on a dead-end ledge with no room to turn around, a goat does not panic. Instead, it executes a breathtaking tactical maneuver, bracing its front hoof against the vertical cliff face and walking its hind leg completely up the stone, performing a flawless, vertical wall flip to reverse its direction in a fraction of a second. To enter the domain of the caprine is to realize that safety is a relative concept. Where the rest of the animal kingdom sees a terrifying, lethal void, the goat sees an open, liberating highway carved into the sky. The transition from the vertical cliffs to the barren, resource-starved landscapes beneath them exposes a second foundational pillar of caprine supremacy, an uncompromising, highly industrial digestive system capable of extracting vital nutrition from botanical matter that would kill or starve any other herbivore. In the high alpine zones and arid desert fringes where goats evolved, lush green pastures do not exist. The vegetation is sparse, heavily armored with woody thorns, and frequently saturated with toxic chemical defenses designed to deter predators. To survive in these nutritional wastelands, the goat was forced to evolve an internal alchemical furnace, turning itself into the ultimate dietary generalist, a creature that does not merely eat grass, but systematically deconstruct the toughest plant tissues on the planet. At the heart of this survival mechanism is a highly advanced, four-chambered ruminant stomach system dominated by a massive fermentation vat, the rumen. When a goat consumes woody scrub, bitter bark, or fibrous pine needles, the material is initially swallowed whole and deposited into the specialized chamber, which houses trillions of highly specialized symbiotic bacteria, protozoa, and fungi. These microscopic organisms produce cellulase enzymes that break down the otherwise indigestible lignified cell walls of tough mountain flora. The goat then regurgitates this partially processed material back into its mouth as cud, utilizing an intense, horizontal grinding jaw motion driven by massive masseter muscles to mechanically pulverize the fibers before swallowing it a second time for final nutrient absorption. This metabolic processing factory is backed by a highly specialized liver and an array of salivary proteins engineered to neutralize organic toxins. Many of the shrubs found in arid caprine habitats, such as acacia, sagebrush, and various mountain weeds, protect themselves by producing high concentrations of tannins and secondary compounds that bind to proteins, rendering the plant completely unpalatable and toxic to most mammals. Goats, however, secrete unique, proline-rich salivary proteins that immediately bind to these tannins the moment mastication begins, preventing them from causing internal damage. Their highly efficient liver then processes and filters out the remaining chemical irritants, allowing the goat to feast comfortably on toxic plants, thorny brush, and dry bark that would induce severe gastrointestinal failure or starvation in competing species. This aggressive foraging strategy is further enhanced by an incredibly dexterous, prehensile mouth structure. A goat lacks upper incisor teeth, featuring instead a hard, callous dental pad that works in perfect harmony with a deeply divided, highly mobile upper lip. This anatomical design allows the animal to strip tiny, nutrient-dense leaves from between clusters of razor-sharp thorns with surgical accuracy. Because their metabolic rate is exceptionally high relative to their body mass, goats are highly selective browsers rather than unthinking grazers. They move rapidly through the landscape, tasting hundreds of different plant species a day, sampling the highest energy buds, seeds, and flowers while leaving the low-nutrient stems behind. This relentless quest for metabolic fuel frequently drives the goat to expand its vertical hunting grounds from the rocky mountain cliffs into the high canopies of the trees themselves. In the arid regions of southwest Morocco, for example, herds of local goats routinely scale the gnarled, vertical branches of the argan tree, climbing over 30 feet into the air to harvest the precious argan fruit. Balancing on narrow branches that sway violently in the desert wind, these tree-climbing caprines demonstrate that their evolutionary spatial awareness is fully transferable from stone to timber. They consume the fruit whole, later passing the hard nuts back into the environment, showcasing how their industrial digestive engine acts as a primary driver of ecological distribution across the barren landscapes they claim. The evolutionary blueprint of the caprine lineage is not a static, localized phenomenon. It is a highly plastic, globally adaptable genetic matrix that has allowed them to colonize almost every extreme environment on the planet. While other mammalian families became specialized prisoners of specific climates, such as the heat-dependent antelopes of the African savannas or the strictly Arctic-bound caribou, the wild relatives of the goat executed a spectacular diaspora across continents. From the freezing, wind-swept peaks of Siberia to the blistering, waterless deserts of the Middle East, the caprine family morphed its physical dimensions, coat densities, and behavioral strategies to exploit every available ecological void, proving that their survival architecture is completely boundless. At the northernmost frontier of this global expansion stands a legendary mountain monarch, the Siberian ibex Capra siberica. Inhabiting the sheer, freezing mountain ranges of Central Asia, this massive caprine faces winter environments where temperatures regularly crash below 40 degrees -0 and resources vanish beneath heavy blankets of ice. To survive, the ibex discards a light, breathable coat of its desert cousins, growing a multi-layered winter pelage consisting of a coarse, water-repellent outer layer of guard hairs and a dense, insulating undercoat of ultrafine cashmere wool. This biological thermal barrier traps a layer of warm air directly against the skin, preventing metabolic heat loss. Their hooves adapt to the shifting seasons as well. During the winter, the soft inner pads shrink and harden, exposing the sharp outer keratin edges to act as natural ice skates that can chip directly into frozen glacier faces for stability. In stark contrast to the Arctic giants of the north, the Nubian ibex, Capra nubiana, took a completely different evolutionary path to conquer the sun-scorched, hyper-arid deserts of North Africa and the Middle East. Operating in landscapes where water is a rare luxury and temperatures can soar past 110 degrees Fahrenheit, this highly elegant caprine has optimized its physiology for extreme water conservation. Their coats are light-colored and highly reflective, bouncing the harsh solar radiation away from their bodies, while their internal kidneys have evolved an extraordinary capacity to concentrate urine, minimizing metabolic fluid loss. They survive by timing their movements with absolute precision, resting in the deep shade of steep desert canyons during the blistering midday heat and emerging onto the vertical rock faces during the dawn and dusk hours to harvest moisture-heavy desert dew from sparse vegetation. Simultaneously, in the rugged, forested mountain terrain of the Himalayas, the spectacular Macaw Capra falconeri evolved into a masterpiece of structural defense and sexual selection. Renowned for its massive, spiraling, corkscrew-like horns that can reach lengths of over 5 feet, the macaw navigates some of the most complex, predator-rich vertical terrain on Earth. These gigantic, fluted horns are not mere ornaments. They serve as critical defensive weapons against specializing predators like the snow leopard and the wolf, while simultaneously functioning as highly efficient heat-radiating structures that help cool the animal's blood during intense physical exertion. The macaw's sheer physical size and heavy musculature allow it to plow through deep mountain snowdrifts and scale sheer cliffs with a level of raw, concussive power that is entirely unique within the caprine family. This incredible geographic diversification was further cemented by the caprine's complete independence from permanent water sources. Many wild goat species can survive for weeks or even months without ever taking a direct drink from a stream or waterhole. They extract every drop of necessary moisture directly from the cellular structure of the plants they consume, supplemented by a highly efficient metabolic process that recycles internal water within their tissues. If a drought decimates a valley, the caprines simply shift their elevation, climbing higher into the cloud forest or retreating into underground cave networks, outlasting all other large herbivores through a combination of extreme physiological conservation and unyielding environmental mobility. The true global dominance of the caprine lineage took a profound, world-altering turn roughly 10,000 years ago within the Fertile Crescent of the Middle East, where humans first crossed paths with the wild Beza ibex Capri gagris. Recognizing the animal's unparalleled dietary resilience and hyper-efficient reproductive capacity, ancient human societies chose the goat as one of the very first animals to be domesticated. This historical alliance transformed the goat from a specialized mountain goat into a global pastoral force, embedded within the core infrastructure of human survival. But this domestication did not tame the caprine. Instead, it untethered them from their geographic boundaries, using human migration networks to launch a massive, unstoppable colonization of the entire planet. As domestic goats spread across Europe, Asia, Africa, and eventually the Americas, they retained the entirety of their wild survival toolkits. Unlike domestic sheep, which lost much of their defensive intelligence and environmental resilience through intensive human selection, the goat remained structurally independent and intellectually sharp. Their unyielding, curious nature and high intelligence are direct evolutionary holdovers from their days navigating unpredictable mountain cliffs. In a domestic setting, this translates into an uncanny ability to solve complex problems, manipulate gate latches, memorize escape routes, and systematically test the structural integrity of human enclosures, making them notoriously difficult to contain. The true, darker manifestation of this caprine resilience is unleashed when domestic goats break free from human control and transition back into the wild as feral populations. When introduced to isolated island ecosystems, often by early maritime explorers who left them behind as a self-sustaining meat source for future voyages, feral goats transform from useful livestock into catastrophic, landscape-altering biological forces. lacking any natural apex predators like wolves or big cats to regulate their numbers, and possessing an industrial digestive engine that can consume almost any native flora. Feral goat populations explode exponentially, triggering severe ecological collapse across fragile island environments. The mechanical reality of a feral goat invasion is devastatingly efficient. On islands like the Galapagos, Guadalupe, and various atolls across the Pacific, introduced goats systematically strip the landscape of its ancient vegetative cover, devouring rare endemic plants down to the bare dirt. By consuming the low-hanging leaves and digging up delicate root systems, they triggered catastrophic soil erosion, causing entire hillsides to wash into the sea and destroying the primary nesting habitats of native birds and ancient reptiles. Their hard, sharp hooves trampled the delicate topsoil, compacting the earth so tightly that native seeds could no longer germinate, effectively transforming thriving, biodiverse island paradises into barren, dust-filled desert landscapes within a matter of decades. This destructive dominance forced conservation scientists to launch some of the most aggressive, high-tech eradication campaigns in wildlife history, most notably Project Isabella in the Galapagos Islands. Utilizing fleets of helicopters, GPS tracking arrays, and specialized Judas goats, sterilized individuals fitted with radio collars that automatically led hunters directly to the last remaining hidden herds. Humans were forced to wage a literal war to reclaim the island from the very creatures they had introduced. The sheer scale and multi-million-dollar costs of these campaigns stand as a profound testament to the unyielding survival capacity of the caprine. The goat does not need the wilderness to thrive. If left unchecked, it will rewrite the rules of any ecosystem it touches, transforming the face of the earth to suit its own unstoppable design. The final chapter in the grand evolutionary saga of the caprine brings us to the modern frontier of a changing planet, where the unique survival architecture of the goat is positioning it to outlast many of the world's most iconic wildlife species. As climate change, desertification, and human industrial expansion accelerate, ecosystems across the globe are fracturing, shifting from stable, water-rich zones into volatile, unpredictable environments. For specialized species that require pristine habitats and specific food sources, this shift is a fast track to extinction. But for the goat, a creature born from the crucible of vertical chaos, architectural scarcity, and toxic vegetation, the modern world is becoming a theater of unprecedented opportunity. In the warming mountain ranges of the world, wild caprines are currently executing a subtle, highly sophisticated behavioral recalibration to mitigate the impacts of rising global temperatures. Alpine species like the alpine ibex and the Rocky Mountain goat are altering their daily elevation schedules with surgical precision, retreating to the highest, permanent ice sheets during the blistering midday hours to keep their core body temperature stable, and dropping down into the vertical cliffs at midnight to forage under the cooling cover of darkness. Their exceptional structural mobility allows them to access these shifting microclimates with ease, moving between completely different environmental zones in a matter of minutes, a luxury completely unavailable to valley-bound herbivores. Simultaneously, the domestic goat is rapidly overtaking other livestock species as a primary engine of sustainable human agriculture in developing nations. As prolonged droughts devastate traditional cattle ranching and sheep farming across sub-Saharan Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, rural communities are systematically shifting their economic foundations toward caprine husbandry. Goats require a fraction of the water and land area that cattle demand, and their ability to thrive on low-quality browse and thorny scrub means they can produce nutrient-dense milk and meat in regions where a cow would starve within weeks. The goat is becoming the ultimate biological shield against human food insecurity, proving that their ancient evolutionary resilience remains directly linked to the future survival of our own species. When we look back across the vast expanse of evolutionary history, the trajectory of the caprine lineage stands as one of the most brilliant triumphs of non-specialized design in the biological world. They did not conquer the planet by evolving massive predatory claws, crushing armor, or high-speed locomotive mechanics. Instead, they triumphed by mastering the art of the edge, by finding safety in the vertical voids where no other creature dared to walk, and by turning the barren, toxic waste of the botanical world into a private metabolic feast. They are the ultimate pragmatists of nature, combining an industrial digestive furnace with a self-stabilizing visual matrix and a hoof design that treats the laws of gravity as a mere suggestion. As we look toward an uncertain ecological future, one truth remains absolute. Long after the specialized predators have vanished from the peaks and the fragile ecosystems of the lowlands have shifted into memory, the silhouette of the goat will still be seen. balanced effortlessly on a razor-thin ledge of a sheer, vertical cliff, looking down upon the changing world with cold, horizontal pupils. The Caprine lineage will continue its quiet, eternal ascendancy, an unstoppable, gravity-defying dynasty that carved its throne into the very stones of the sky. If this deep dive into the hidden biomechanics, alchemical digestion, and global dominance of the modern goat completely transformed your perspective on these legendary vertical conquerors, make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments below. To ensure you never miss our next cinematic exploration into the shocking, untamed realities of the animal kingdom, follow this series now. Thank you for ascending to the highest peaks with the ultimate masters of balance.